So the purpose of this PowerPoint is to talk about what the purpose of the class is and what I mean by making history meaningful. Right, so hopefully this college history class will be a different experience if you've had a negative experience with history in the past. There is a difference between how high school history is traditionally taught and how college history is taught. So when you're taking a high school history class, you usually are required to memorize a lot of names and dates. The curriculum is dictated by the school board, and the teacher has very little control over what they can talk about. And oftentimes, when people tell me that they dislike history, it's because they feel like it's not relevant to them. The student is not actively involved in it. They're given a list of things to memorize and then they repeat it back. If this has been your experience with history in the past, you probably haven't enjoyed it very much. And if you have enjoyed it, then that shows that you are really truly interested in history, because it's very hard to be engaged in that type of a class. This course is going to be different. Generally, college history is taught differently. So instead of emphasizing a lot of names and dates, we focus on the importance and the connection of the past to the present, why those things matter, how they impacted the present. And so this is why I pull a lot of current events into our course, to make that event make sense in terms of the present. And that's a much more meaningful experience. In addition to this, college instructors have something that's called academic freedom. And what that means is that the instructor has the freedom to discuss controversial topics without fear of being fired. We have more control over what we can cover in the classroom. So that allows us to explore ideas that might be uncomfortable. And this actually helps you develop your critical thinking, because it allows you to examine multiple perspectives in a safe way, in a way that allows you to see other people's viewpoints. And you might be exposed to ideas that you've never considered before. So I'm going to ask you guys to allow each other some grace as this semester progresses. We're going to be looking at some different perspectives. And I'm going to ask you guys to be open-minded, to consider those perspectives without first coming to a predetermined judgment, and to examine all perspectives. And ultimately, you can come back to your original opinion, but I want you to understand the facts behind that perspective. And then finally, in college history, there's a lot more emphasis on the student to do the work, particularly in an online class. Right? So you are the one who's going to be determining the interpretations. Instead of me giving you the answer, you're going to be finding it and interpreting it based on the work that you do yourself. So our focus in this class is actually writing history. So we're going to be analyzing and writing history in various activities throughout the semester. So I'll have what are called participation activities. These are just weekly assignments that you have to do based on the unit materials. It can be a discussion board. It could be reading a primary source and responding to it. We're also going to have discussions, right, where you guys are going to be dealing with historical questions. You're going to be getting into debates and discussions with your classmates. And then finally, you'll have a final paper at the end of the semester where you're going to take on the role of the teacher or the historian and actually write about a historical topic, right? I'm going to teach you how to do this along the way. So online classes are a different experience than face-to-face classes. Online classes, even more than face-to-face classes, require something that's called active learning. So you are the one that's going to be doing the you're essentially teaching and learning together. Instead of an instructor standing up there lecturing the whole time, you're going to be working through the sources. You're going to be coming up with that analysis, that interpretation. It's going to require a level of participation beyond what you would have to do in a face-to-face class if you want this course to be successful. So if this is intimidating, if this is overwhelming, ask questions. Send me an email. Don't be afraid to ask for help. I can't stress that enough. If an assignment that I'm asking doesn't make sense, if it's unclear what I'm looking for, please send me a question. I can clarify. So history is written through something that's called primary and secondary sources. Primary sources are documents from the time period that we're studying. So if you're reading about the Vietnam War, read a letter from a soldier who actually experienced the Vietnam War. That's a primary source. You're getting that information firsthand. And we will be reading primary sources through our document reader, reading the American Past Volume 2, which is one of our required texts. Historians also take into account something that's called secondary sources. This is secondhand information. So it's books, articles written about a specific time period by the historian who is an expert in the field. This is our textbook. So you're going to be using a combination of primary and secondary sources to complete assignments throughout the semester. So hopefully this will be a better experience for you. If you haven't had a positive experience, if you do like history, I hope that you love this class. But please don't hesitate to ask me if you have any questions at all.